Hey friends, today I'm building a cemetery and crypt in the countryside. Let's check it out. So one of you actually suggested building a crypt, which I thought would be a fun challenge, and I decided to add a full cemetery, a church, and a park with a pond to kind of round out the lot. So thank you for your suggestions. I really appreciate it. If you have any ideas for other builds or anything you'd like to see me, make in The Sims, please let me know. But yeah, I'm kind of starting off here with the pond, which I think was my second attempt. It took me a little bit to kind of figure out the shape that I wanted and like how big for the lot, because I am building on this 64 by 64 lot in Ravenwood. It's like in the, I forget which of the neighborhoods it is. It's like the kind of more rural one. So just kind of building on the empty lot there. I thought that would be kind of fun. And kind of work well with this sort of more rural theme that I kind of ended up going with. So yeah, I wanted to make the lot a little bit more useful too if you didn't want to just use it as a cemetery. So it can also function as a park in the game if you want to use it that way. It's got everything you need for that. But it is kind of more focused on being a cemetery. It's got this church that I added. Which, you could probably also use this as a wedding venue. I didn't make it specifically for that, but you'd probably only need to add a few things if you wanted to use it for that as well. And this build actually took me a couple of weeks to get done. I just like kept running into mental roadblocks with it. So yeah, it took a little bit longer than I was expecting, but I think it ended up pretty decent. You'll have to let me know what you think. But yeah, I ended up making the actual building of the church on a diagonal, which I was a little bit worried about at first because, building on a diagonal in The Sims can be a little frustrating. But it actually wasn't too bad on this one, which was good because the rest of it was already kind of a lot. But yeah, I think it worked pretty well. There's always kind of like weird issues with especially counters and like in kitchens not really snapping together if you do it on a diagonal, because I did put a small kitchen in, but it ended up being okay. I just kind of had to manually adjust a few things. But yeah, first I tried to go for this sort of like white building with black accents, but I don't know, it was like really standing out too much, so I ended up just making all of the windows and doors white, just kind of blend in. And I think that ended up working a lot better. And when I was placing the windows on the back of the church, I was thinking about how at least in The Sims 2, I can't remember if The Sims 3 had it, but they had like multi-story windows that would, span across. And I really wish we had that in The Sims 4, because there's been quite a few times where I've wanted to have like a multi-level window, but it just doesn't really work because there's kind of like the dividing line where the floor would be, just kind of ends up showing through it. So yeah, it would be really cool if they brought that back. I don't really know if they ever would, but that would be cool. But yeah, for the layout, pretty simple. There's a couple of bathrooms, a little bit of a little kitchen if you want to like make stuff. But yeah, fairly simple overall. I did kind of like a raised platform, kind of like where the like lectern and all of that kind of like musical instruments and things would be. It's probably a bit big, honestly, than like proportionally in like a real church, but for the game, I think it made a little bit more sense. I wanted there to be enough space to move around up there because I do add in quite a few like musical instruments, like at the piano and the organ, guitar, stuff like that, along with the like casket from Life and Death. So you can use this as, for funerals and stuff too. And I end up jumping around quite a bit in the rest of the build. So yeah, there'll be quite a few more transitions and stuff than usual. So just kind of FYI, the video is also a little bit faster than normal, just since I had so many hours of footage. I was able to, cut a lot down, but yeah, just a little bit faster this time. So hopefully it's not too noticeable. But yeah, I've got kind of all that stuff at the front here, added in a couple of kind of floral decorations. And then I put in some benches here, and the layout is kind of weird. I don't really know why I did it this way at first, but I do change it so it looks a little bit more traditional later on. Yeah, I don't know. My brain just like wasn't working at that moment, I guess. But yeah, and then I added a couple of tables with chairs, just so you could use it as kind of like an event space too. You know, if you have like a funeral, you have like food and stuff. You know, I imagine maybe these, you know, pews or benches or whatever are movable, you know, so they can make space for events and things. That's, you know, my thought process as well, at least. But yeah, here for the kitchen, ended up using mostly cottage living items, plus this like flat top grill thing, which I think would make a lot of sense in like a church environment, like doing like a pancake feed or something. I always imagine, you know, those are kind of pretty popular. So yeah, have like a flat top grill, I guess. And at first, when I was starting to build this, I was going to try to do like a limited pack build with just life and death, cottage living, and I think maybe get together, just as it had a lot of the like architectural items that I liked. But then when I remember that the organ was only available in vampires, I was like, well, yeah, I'll add that one. And then I think at that point I just kind of gave up on trying to limit the number of packs that I was going to do. So, but I don't think it's terrible. Like I didn't use a ton of like stuff packs or kits or things like that. So hopefully it's not too bad if you do want to download it. It is on the gallery. So yeah. But yeah, definitely let me know what you think if you download it and play with it. And speaking of packs, what are you all thinking about the new businesses and hobbies pack that's coming out? I think this week from when I'm posting this video. I'm kind of excited about it. More excited than I was. Like I've been watching some of the creators who had like early access and some of their content. So yeah, I think it looks really interesting. It looks like it's, you know, pretty well made. It doesn't seem particularly buggy, or at least not more than usual. So, you know, that's good at least. I still think it's kind of an interesting, I don't know, idea for a pack. Like, yeah, I don't know. I still feel like the Sims team just didn't really have a clear roadmap of what the content would look like when they were first developing the game. Because, you know, it does feel very similar to Get to Work as far as like the retail and business system goes. Like, why didn't they just make a full pack that was just dedicated to businesses, and then one that was dedicated to like active careers? I don't know. It just felt kind of odd. And unfortunately, I think that, you know, comparison is just going to keep popping up with these packs. So, but yeah, I mean, it looks like it's, you know, pretty well made. So I'm kind of excited to play with it. Very jealous of people who get early access to it. You know, maybe someday, you know, fingers crossed. But yeah, let me know what you think. Would also love to hear if you have any, you know, kind of wishes for packs this year from the Sims team. I still have my fingers crossed for a hotel pack. Maybe even a bands thing. I'm not like I'm much more interested in hotels, but bands would be really cool. So yeah, let me know what you think. And while I've been yapping away, I put together the park area. So I did kind of like a sandbox sort of playground area, you know, for any kids, with like a toddler slide as well, which was really cute. When I was doing the like play testing and like recording for the like little tour at the end, I was playing with a version of Johnny Zest that I had played with, who ended up having like an alien baby. So you'll get to see them a little bit in the tour, but I mostly tested with Olive Spectre, like from Life and Death. So you'll mainly see them, but I thought that was kind of cute because I wanted to test the toddler slide and everything. And I also added in a little bit kind of more detail or texture to the sand area with like a darker color, just to make it look like, you know, kids have been running around through there and stuff, so it didn't look too neat and orderly. And yeah, for the pond, do a lot of this sort of like cattail and like tall grass kind of along the edge. in a few different places, along with some rocks, and I add in a bunch of those kind of effect items like the dragonflies and mallards and swans and stuff. So kind of see them a little bit. You'll see them a little bit in the tour. And I ended up having to do a little bit of research about ponds and like what kind of vegetation they usually had around them. I don't know, you'd think I'd like never seen a pond before in my life, the way I was struggling with figuring out what to put around it. But yeah, I ended up kind of pulling out a whole bunch of things here in a second, and then I put this kind of like ground cover around the edge, which I think worked well. I think, you know, in a lot of ponds you'd have a lot more tall grass, but I didn't want to have a ton of that around this. You know, I imagine there's like a caretaker for the park and maybe the cemetery. So they're kind of keeping things, you know, a little bit more manicured than, you know, like a natural pond would have. So like, you know, there are some areas with the taller grass, but it's mostly kind of like low-lying vegetation with a whole bunch of flowers that have been kind of maybe planted there or just kind of, you know, sprung up from, you know, whatever. But yeah, I think this ended up looking a lot better than this sort of like sandy dirt like terrain paint that I just had around it. But yeah, you'll definitely have to let me know what you think of that. Maybe if there's something else I could have done with it, but I think this looked much better than before. With the cemetery area here too, I ended up using a lot of terrain paint as well, just kind of carried that through. And you know, I'm really glad, I don't know if they fixed the bug, but I'm really glad that I didn't have any issues with the terrain paint. It all stayed where it was supposed to and didn't like disappear on me. So I was very thankful for that. But yeah, here in the this kind of first part of the cemetery, I imagine this is like the oldest part of the cemetery. So a lot of the gravestone items that I used, I think a lot of those are from vampires and maybe even base game, I can't remember. But they're not really functional. They don't really have any gameplay associated with them, and I imagine, you know, like maybe they're, you know, so old that all of the ghosts have kind of disappeared or, you know, have moved on. So that's kind of why there's not really much to do with those ones. But then the newer areas, they all have a lot of the gravestones from Life and Death that have you know, a bit more to do with them. And then for the crypt, I really struggled with how I wanted this to like look and function. I was kind of debating if I wanted to have the entrance like in the church and you had to like, you know, go downstairs from there, or have it like outside and be like not in a building, but you know, the stairs just go right down. But having the stairs just kind of open to the outdoors, I just couldn't really get the look that I wanted from them. You know, from kind of researching what the entrance to crypts look like, it just, I mean, it might be possible in The Sims, but I certainly don't have the skills to make it happen. So I ended up just putting it inside of a, you know, small building out here that kind of at least coordinated a little bit with the crypt item that came with Life and Death. But I ended up needing to make the walls shorter, like to the medium height, because I had them at the tall height for the church. But I think the medium is still fine. It ended up working and looking okay. But the tall height, I think, would have looked kind of ridiculous. So yeah, I had to kind of shrink that down. And overall, I'm pretty happy with how it turns out. I don't know how realistic this would be. I also don't really know if like a rural cemetery like this would have an actual crypt. That kind of feels more like a, you know, a city thing where space is limited to, you know, bury people. So yeah, I don't really know if it's realistic, but you know, it's still kind of fun, you know, in The Sims here. So yeah, and I was gonna try to, you know, make that crypt item maybe part of this building, but it didn't really work that way. So it's just kind of hanging out next to it in case you want to use this as, you know, like the rabbit hole to kind of explore the crypts. And I work on the actual crypt part later, but you know, I did actually play through the rabbit hole, you know, in Life and Death to kind of figure out what some of the rooms would be for it, because I kind of wanted it to reflect that a little bit if I could. So yeah, you'll see that a little bit later, but yeah, I'm just kind of working on a little bit more landscaping, and then kind of working on the newer side of the cemetery. And this side is pretty similar to the other side. I just used some of those like stone grave sites, I guess. I guess I'm not exactly sure what they're called. And the terrain paint is slightly more, I don't know, refined, I guess, or like lined up. But yeah, very similar overall. I just use more of the like actual life and death gravestones, just so they're a little bit more, interactable. I also tried to use a good variety of gravestones kind of overall. So I've got ones from, life and death, of course. There's like the werewolf one, the vampire one from Snowy Escape, like the Mount Komarami one. So yeah, a little bit of variety there. And also, I wanted these ones, like these grave sites, to look a little bit more fresh, a little bit newer. So they've got, kind of like the dirt, kind of like in those first two, and then the next row, it's like a little bit more faded, and then, yeah, kind of goes from there. And I added this tent, like canopy item, to a site that maybe they're preparing to, bury someone there. I've seen that at in cemeteries where when they're like prepping the site, they like put a tent canopy thing over it. So that's kind of where that came from. But yeah, I don't know if they do that everywhere, or like if there's like a standards for things like that. I mean, probably, but yeah. And for the back of the church, I was gonna put a tree, but I didn't really want to block the view from like the main like sanctuary area. So I put in like a bunch of wildflowers back there. I thought that was kind of fun. Added a few more kind of over there, and yeah, just kind of organizing some of the landscaping and adding in some different flowers and stuff. And yeah, I put in this kind of smaller hedge around the front of the church, along with these kind of like low-lying plants to kind of just kind of layer it a little bit, I guess, add a little bit more interest. And yeah, I think that worked out pretty well. And I did also put this woohoo bush back behind the church, which is maybe a little, controversial, a little risque, but, I just want to make sure that there's, a woohoo spot on this lot. So yeah, I thought that was kind of funny. And yeah, just kind of finishing up some of the landscaping around the pond, kind of editing the terrain paint a bit too. And then I will move down and start working on the crypt. And the crypt was definitely a fun challenge to put together. I've never really built anything like this before. And yeah, like I said, I had played through the rabbit hole kind of crypt exploration thing in Life and Death. And I got a lot of my ideas from that as far as like which kind of rooms to include. And I have it kind of loop around because you can kind of go between the rooms. Like I don't think there's like a set order in which you'll explore the different parts of it. So I kind of wanted to reflect that a little bit. I didn't make it super huge because I wasn't really sure, if anyone would really want to use this that much. But yeah, just kind of like a fun idea. So like first you kind of like walk down, and then there's this room with a piano in it. Because one of the like cards that you get when you're exploring is you have to like play a certain tune in order to like keep going. And if you don't, you fall through a trap door. So I added like a little square with like the stones turned a different way. So it was kind of, obvious that it was different, since we don't have like a specific trap door item. At least not that I know of. It's certainly not a functional one. But yeah, and then there's also this like room where you explore a sarcophagus. So I put like a coffin in that room, since we don't have a sarcophagus, per se. Then there's this other spot where you like run into someone who is like selling things down here for for some reason. So I put in this selling table. I put in this other little like the decorative item, and just a few other kind of things in here to kind of build it out. And then just kind of swap out the lights to these, kind of dimmer like candelabras on the walls, which I think really set the mood once I put those in here. And then I'll also add in another room that is supposed to be like a rest stop, basically. Like it puts all your needs back up when you go in there. So I'll add that in. It'll have like a full like kitchen and like bed and bathroom and everything. But then for underneath of like where this trap door would be, I just like added a bunch of like coffins and like tombstones and stuff just to make it a little bit kind of creepier if you kind of fell down here. And then I did put a ladder just to kind of, I don't know, if you wanted to like actually come down here. But yeah, I think the coffins are just from vampires. I just used like the kind of cheaper wooden box ones. No idea how those would have gotten down there. That's maybe just the mystery of this crypt. So yeah, and I start building the kind of resting room on one side, but I'll actually move it over to the other side, just since there's a little bit more room over there. And I also added a like memorial for this like sarcophagus room, which, you know, maybe it's easy to miss that, and that's why they don't mention it in the little chance card that you get. But yeah, for the kind of resting room, yeah, mostly just use life and death items like the full kitchen stuff, put in like a little living room, and I used the fireplace that came with it. However, I didn't realize that it was sticking up out of the ground. I'll notice that later on. So I do end up swapping that out later. You'll see that, but yeah, that was kind of a bummer. I could have made the crypt have like, I guess I could have lowered it down, but I was worried that it was gonna like start messing with the like stairs and everything else. I also had an issue where because I had like started building this kind of so far back, it was actually messing up the pond, you know, up above. So I end up having to kind of reorient the crypt to the side. You'll see kind of the finished product like later. I don't show me moving it just because that's kind of boring, but yeah, that was kind of annoying when I went back up to the ground level and saw that the pond was like half of it was cut up. I also realized that I didn't leave myself any space to put in like an actual crypt to like keep like coffins and things. So I cut it out, but I shifted the rest of the crypt kind of forward more. So I ended up moving that like twice because of the like pond issue too. But yeah, I think this worked out pretty well. I put in a bunch of different coffins, and then I was thinking with these like gravestones on the walls, kind of like when they like would put like the coffins and bodies and stuff like in the wall. That was kind of like the thought process. So yeah, I ended up making these all the same, just kind of lifting them up and putting them in there, which seemed to work pretty well. They do kind of float when you have the walls down, but I don't think it's that big of a deal because there's not really anything behind it. So yeah, if you do want to play with this, you shouldn't really have any issues with that. But yeah, then I just kind of lift up all of those coffins. I kind of repeat the, you know, gravestones on the wall over here. And then I'll also put in some of the stone like gravesite items that I used above down here too. And I think that really kind of finished it off. I wasn't really sure what else to put in here. You know, you can't really make like a real historic crypt in The Sims, at least not that I could figure out. But yeah, this is kind of like where I had turned it, so you'll actually kind of turn and go down the hall to get to the rest of it, which I think worked fine. And here's where I'm swapping out the fireplace. I just used one of that new base game one, which I think fit in pretty well. I'm curious if they actually colored it based on Life and Death, because it has a lot of similar swatches. But yeah, that I think that worked out well. And then just kind of finishing up with the lighting around the whole lot. I wasn't really sure what kind of lights to use. I think these ones from Outdoor Retreat, I think that's where they're from, were kind of the best option since it's a little bit more, you know, kind of a rural area. They're probably not gonna have like really fancy like iron lights out here. So yeah, I think these worked out pretty well. I do a little bit nicer ones within the cemetery, you know, like maybe the church has, you know, bought these ones. So they're a little bit nicer, but I didn't think it made sense to do that everywhere. But yeah, the lighting is pretty much the last thing that I do on the whole lot. So after that, I'll leave you with the tour. But yeah, like I said, it is on the gallery if you'd like to download it. But other than that, I just want to say thank you so much for watching today. I really appreciate it. I know there's a million other things you could be doing, so it means a lot. If you liked the video, please leave a like. That helps a lot. And subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. Thank you so much. Have a great day.